there are a lot of carnivores on this planet, and there's a lot of people that are vegetarian or vegan or whatever you choose to be, and every one of you guys has the right to be whatever you want to be. So that being said, if people get nasty in the comment section, we'll probably just delete them and whatnot. There's just really no need for that. I'm out here trying to live a sustainable lifestyle, one that's similar to our ancestors, and raising responsibly and harvesting meat is part of that process. And hopefully you can see the care and thoughtfulness that goes into it.
Warning, this video contains graphic material. Although it does follow YouTube guidelines, I will be dispatching, skinning, and harvesting the meat of a meat goat in this video. Out of respect for anyone who has a different perspective than I do, I'm giving you this warning now. Please tune away so you don't have to view this content. This video is for educational purposes. Please be respectful in the comment section.
Yesterday, I decided to butcher my buck goat. He's a boar goat. And I'm going to show you guys the process. I'm going to follow YouTube guidelines. And it won't be extremely graphic, but it is graphic. I will show the dispatch from a distance, and then a little bit of the skinning and whatnot. I'll explain what I did. It's my very first time processing a large animal like this. The last time I processed something, I was 14. I did a rabbit, and the same year I helped field dress a deer, and that's all I've ever done really outside of birds. So stay tuned, and we're going to go ahead and I'll show you what I did. I did not stop feeding my buck. I just let him eat, and then the morning of, I just took him out of the pen, tied him up away from the goats, and slit his throat. It was a pretty quick and painless process, and my winch broke where I was going to hoist him up, so I got creative and put the gambrel on the lap pull down for my gym, and then started to add weights to lift him up. Otherwise, it would have been really difficult to hoist him up. So I put him in my squat cage, and that's where I did the skinning. Stay. Well, my winch busted off of the 4x4, so sometimes you got to get creative.
I started out skinning the goat by carefully cutting around the legs. You have to be pretty careful because he's hoisted up on the gambrel by the tendon, and if you get in there too deep at all, you could easily slice that tendon and it'll drop the animal. So just nice and easy around the legs, and then from there I'll cut down the inside of the leg to join by the groin on both sides. I cut around the anus and tied it in to a knot, and then where I joined between the legs, I just started to cut down the front of the torso so that I could pull the guts out of the animal. I brought my wheelbarrow over so that I would have somewhere, safe, secure, and easy to drop the organs and whatnot into. Slowly, I just grabbed a hold of the skin and then gently cut the skin away from the body.
After I skinned my goat, I cut out the organs and everything, and then I hoisted him up onto a table, lowered him down, and started to make my cuts. I would have liked to film more of the process, but I'm all alone and that got kind of difficult. So I skinned him down, and I had left the head on, and once I got the skin down below the neck where the head was, I used my saw to cut his head off. And all of that stuff I set aside kind of in a discarding bucket basically. And then once I threw him up onto the table, I cut his feet off right about where you saw where I was starting to skin. So I did that on the front and the back. And then I rolled him over so I could see the H-bone in his hips, and I used the hacksaw to cut the lower legs off of the body. And then I cut at the hip joint and separated the shanks from the H-bone, the hips, and threw that in the discard bucket. And then from there, the front legs are not connected to the body. The shoulder just kind of floats there. And I was like, I wanted to make sure I got him into the freezer as soon as possible. So I actually cut the entire shoulder off on both front legs and threw those in the freezer. I washed them and threw them in the freezer. I did that with each piece as I did it, because I knew that I wanted it to cool it down in the freezer before I made any cuts. So once I had removed the head and the legs, I had the torso left, and I cut along the side of the ribs on the front side and tried to fillet close to the ribs as I could, to pull all of the meat off of the front of the ribs. I did that on both sides, and most of that is just going to be sausage, which is what I planned to do all along. I might even take a shank or two and make sausage out of them. From there, the erectors along the spine, which are your sirloin, I cut down the sides and pulled out, the back strap as big as I could. I believe that's what you call it. You would normally cut those, make cuts into like pork chops or whatnot, but they're really not that big. I may or may not cut them that way. I'll make my mind up here shortly. And otherwise, the psoas inside the torso, I cut the psoas out, and that's what they make filet mignon out of. So I scraped off as much meat as I could and set it aside, and that's all going to be sausage. The shanks, which are the legs, those are all the largest pieces of meat. There's quite a bit in there, and I'll show you a little more about that. So in the video, you can see that I pulled the guts and whatnot into the bucket. As I was doing the process, I nicked the inside just a little bit, and I kind of contaminated the cavity a little bit, and I just didn't want to risk anything. And I put all of the organs and everything into the bucket, and I buried them to break down and use as compost. They won't be wasted. The bones and everything will be broken down, and I can use them in the garden eventually. I had a lot going on, and I'll bury this better here soon, but this is where I started a pile to let those pieces break down so I can use them in the future over here by the composting. I set a couple boxes up here. It was 1.4 pounds for the boxes and plastic, and I'm just going to stack the meat in there real quick before I make breakfast sausage to see what it weighs. So that's 38.2 pounds, and it's not quite as much as I thought that it was. It just looks like so much meat. But on the same tip, think about 40 pounds of meat. I think I'm usually eating about 8 ounces a day now. And so, if you ate 8 ounces every day, well, you got 80 days worth of meat. So it's almost 3 months worth of meat. That's pretty good. And then we've got the doe. I think she's pregnant again, so I'll have to wait for her to have kids, wean them. But I have 2 kids right now that probably before that I can butcher. So there's 2 more. Well, there'll be another 5 at any rate. So within the year, I'll have 5 more goats. And then right now my pig's pregnant. So I do think that at this point we're just about sustainable as far as meat goes. The goats I'm gonna phase out, but I'm gonna start to breed more pigs. I've already got 4 pigs, and when Bonnie has piglets, she'll probably have around 8. And she can do that every 3 months. So with all the pen space, I'll be able to do quite a bit of pigs. I think it'll just be easier to focus on one livestock other than the chickens, and it'll just be an easier process. And the pigs are pretty simple to deal with, so we'll be processing some pigs pretty soon as well. One down. I just cut 9 steaks out of the back strap, and then I don't have bags large enough for the shanks, so I'm going to go ahead and just wrap them as well as I can in some plastic. Originally I was going to make a roast out of the shoulder. I mean, really, this whole darn thing could go into a roast if I could fit it. So I'm just going to wrap these up like this, and I'll probably cook them over a campfire, or if I have a pot large enough at some point, maybe I can roast one, and maybe have a few people over for that, or cook it and store it for a few days. I know it's not perfectly ideal, but I'm working with what I have here, so this will be a nice piece of meat. Though, look how big this thing is. This piece alone is almost 7 pounds. So I've got the bigger shanks back there, and then the next 2 are about this size. I could definitely throw this in as a roast. So this is all my shanks right here, and I'm going to load everything in the freezer and just give you one last peek of how much meat we got. So here's all the shanks in the corner. Everything right here is pork chops and other stuff that I already had, but this is all sausage. There's 27 patties if I remember, and then these are all backstrap steaks, and then I made a couple bags for dog food. There's these ones, and there's another down here, just a few pieces for dog food. So all that meat, guys, just from one goat. Anyhow, I'm a real beginner when it comes to butchering a goat. That was my first time ever, so hopefully you found it helpful, though, to see behind the scenes what's exactly happening. And that'll be the first video. Today I'm going to do sausage, so that'll be another video, and I'll be posting some more content. So if you like the content, please subscribe, leave a comment below if you have any questions. Check out the links below if you want to learn more about my homestead. I've written a couple books about it, and then I make my own herbal teas: red tea, blue tea, green tea, corn flour. You can find those on my website. Catch you guys later.